Welcome to the BMAX Sports Podcast.
Hey, we got 30 minutes for the rest of our lives. 30 minutes for the rest of our lives.
Make sure to subscribe on all platforms.
Let's be great. Let's be great.
Hope you enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, BMAX Sports is back in the house. Tate and Josh in the morning. Josh, how the hell you doing, buddy?
Dude, we out here, my son. We out here rolling, grinding, doing weekend stuff.
Yeah, speaking of grinding, I literally just started going back to the gym today. Shout out to Noah Rios for taking me in under his wing. Dude, it showed me just how bad out of shape I was. After like the second set of buys and second set of shoulders, I was done. It was going to be a long week for me. Sore for sure tomorrow morning and the next day. I've got to take some protein before I go to sleep. It's rough out here for a pimp.
I'm freaking dreading it because, I mean, after everything, all the COVID mess going on, I haven't been in the gym in like 2.5 months maybe. And I've been meaning to go back, but you start to think about it after work and you're just like, nah.
Yeah, you're like, fuck that, right?
I gotta get in the mood, but I think it's coming, baby.
Well, I was in the mood today until I got there. Yeah,
But
it's rough.
it's better when you have somebody to go with you. It's
Yeah,
really
no, me and
hard.
Floyd are actually going to start going together,
It's
so
really,
that'll be.
It's really hard to get back into the swing of things whenever you're going by yourself. So
Right,
get
for
you
sure.
you a good accountable partner and get thick, boy.
I'm trying to get super swole, you know what I mean? Beach season's right around the corner. Trying to get a little definition, lose a little bit of this gut I got. Slowly but surely, I plan on getting there. So, with that being said, let's jump right into it. The first things first, of course, the George Floyd case is all over the news right now with all the protests and all going on. Even here in our home state of Georgia, in Atlanta and Savannah, are starting to see protests. The one in Savannah, I believe, as far as I know, was mostly peaceful, but there was still. We'll touch on it later. We'll touch on Savannah later. Just in general, the George Floyd case. Since the last time we've talked about it, the officer that did have his knee on the back of George Floyd's neck has been arrested and charged with third-degree murder. I think he could possibly maybe get convicted. I mean, if they charge him with second-degree murder, it's a lot harder to get a conviction. In first degree, I mean, you got to have that premeditated and intention. It's hard to prove that. Seeing as he was called to the scene, he didn't just pull up on him and yank him. I mean, he was doing something illegal, but of course he didn't deserve to lose his life. I think the reason he was charged with a third degree is because they feel confident that they can get a conviction at the third degree level. As you climb into the second, first degree murders, it gets harder and harder to convict somebody of it. You've got to have a lot of evidence, which I think the evidence is there for sure, especially for the third degree charge. I think that's why he was charged with third degree. I find it interesting that his fellow officers, I mean, they were fired, but they haven't had charges brought against them yet. I look for that to happen as well. Maybe, I don't know what they'll be charged with, but I looked up for them to be charged in something as well for not stepping in and protecting George Floyd. So what do you think, Hutto? Do you agree with the third degree murder charge, or what are your thoughts on it?
I don't think it's going to be what everybody was looking for because, like I said earlier in the last podcast, this situation was definitely a tragedy. I mean, whether he had committed a crime or not, yes, should he have gone to jail? Sure. Should he have been killed because he had a knee in the back of his neck? No. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, any conviction that puts this guy in jail is going to satisfy most people. But I think a lot of people are going to not agree with that. So, but like I said, I don't think when you were talking about the first and second degree murder, there's a lot that goes into getting first and second, especially first degree, where you have to have intent to kill the person, premeditated, things like that. That's not going to happen. I mean, that's out the window. That's not going to happen. What I saw an interesting post that was talking about the other officers, and they pointed out that the other officers, there was a Mexican officer, a black officer, and an Asian officer. And that was something interesting to me that nobody has pointed out yet. That at this point, I think it was just. I mean, and this is just me talking. I mean, like I said, it's just my opinion. I really don't think it was a race thing. I just think it was an abuse of power thing, to be honest with you. Because I mean, it was just the way that there's been some stuff in that town that there's kind of some really interesting things that are going on where and I'm pretty sure they're being investigated too of other things that have gone on there with abuse of power. So like I said, I don't know. You're never really truly going to know because they're not going to admit to it, and you're not going to be able to get the full story behind it. But that's just me.
I totally agree. I find it interesting that there was such a variety of race there, and the police officers. I'm not trying to blame the bystanders by any means, but I think maybe if there hadn't been bystanders in which the other officers were directing their attention to, maybe they could have helped stop the officer that did end up killing Mr. Floyd.
Well, and I think that's a lot of the reason you were talking about earlier. They did get fired, and you were wondering if they were going to get charges brought upon them. Those bystanders and them standing around making sure that those guys were not on their guy. I mean, that's part of their job. So I think a lot of that is going to take heat off of them being convicted of some kind of crime, whether it be accessory to murder or what. I don't know.
Right. I agree 100%. But I will look at the other side of the coin. Plies, my previous rap obsession when I was in high school, made a video today, and he made some good points that made sense. He stated that if me and three of the homies are going to put a hit on somebody, and we set up a barricade around the area, and they end up killing him, those three guys will for sure be charged with accessory to murder. And the thing is, they set up a perimeter because these onlookers and eyewitnesses were trying to intervene, which in turn could have saved George Floyd's life. So I see why they were trying to intervene, but it's those officers' job to protect their fellow officer. I understand it from both sides. I really do. It's a tough situation to make a call whether these guys should be charged. I'm glad I'm not the person that has to make that decision because we'll never know what their intent was. You know what I mean? We'll like you said, even when this case goes to trial, you're not going to hear any. I guarantee you, these cops aren't going to take the stand. I mean, it's just I wouldn't. I mean, it's going to make them look bad. Cross-examination, stuff like that can get tricky, get tripped up, and then you're charged with perjury for lying. It's just not good for the Minnesota Police Department for these guys to go on the stand. I'd love to hear their side of the story, why they didn't stop him and stuff like that, but unfortunately, I don't think we ever will hear it.
Oh, and what's the worst part to me out of this whole situation is because at 5 days ago, at that point in time, everyone was behind George Floyd and his situation.
Right. Absolutely.
But now, after you see, okay, they wanted an arrest, and if the protest would have remained peaceful and they would have been out in the street, okay, they get their arrest. That's what they wanted, or that's what they claimed they wanted. My question now is, what does destroying your hometown and walking out of Target with a 65-inch TV, how does that bring justice? How does that bring peace of mind to George Floyd's family? And I mean, I think she's come out and said that if George Floyd would be alive and saw his city burning, that it would bring him to absolute tears, is what his sister was saying. Because apparently he was really like community driven, loved where he came from, as things like that. So I mean, they said that it would really upset him to see. I mean, I really don't understand what they think they're going to gain from destroying their own town. Because when I want a 4 for $4, I can go down the road to my Wendy's, because you know what? My Wendy's isn't burnt down. Or I can go up to my local Walmart and go and grab a a 12 pack of beer or get me some hamburger buns so we can go out and have a barbecue. They can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't understand it. I really don't. It makes no sense to me whatsoever that, number one, you're destroying your own community. So that's on you. And that all these protests, or I say protests, violent riots, that they're out here crashing things, lighting buildings on fire, destroying the CNN building in Atlanta. They're out here doing all these things. And if you really want your cause to be taken seriously, why? Because, I mean, up till 5 days ago, it was being taken seriously. I don't know one person who said that the cop was justified. I don't know a soul. But now you've got everybody else pissed off because you go and act like what you're doing. And that's no way to get justice. That's no way to be taken seriously. If I had a problem at work and something happened that I didn't agree with, and I go up front and I say, hey, here's my case. This is what I want happen. And then they say, well, we'll have to think about it. So then I go and get everybody who agrees with me. And we all go up front and we say, hey, we really don't like this. That we feel like this is unsafe or some kind of workplace deal that we would like to be dealt with. Who is going to be taken more seriously? The group that goes up there and lays out their points and said, hey, this is what we believe. This is why we believe it's unsafe because A, B, C, D. Or the group that goes up there, starts tossing shit, cursing out the COO, cursing out the managers, and stuff like that, throwing planted pots through the window. I mean, they're not going to be taken seriously. And I don't see why they don't see that.
Right. And I agree with you. It would make a lot more sense to me if, like I'll use the example you used, the workplace. If I was mad at work and I went and burnt down work, that would make sense to me. So when they overtook the Minneapolis Police Department, destroyed all those cop cruisers, I can see that. Like, it's not justified. Don't get me wrong.
I can't even see that. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean,
that would make sense. That's the target. That's who they're mad at. But going and looting Target had fucking absolutely nothing to do with this.
And the thing is, Target is a supporter of Black Lives Matter. Like, they give money to that organization. CNN gives airtime. They give airtime to Black Lives Matter, and yet you're going to go burn it down, or you're going to go.
That's the only thing that so confused me. Like, if you're mad at the police department, you want justice against the police department. Like I said, I don't condone going to burn down a police department. That's not very smart. You're going to be in jail. You're getting nothing from it. But that clicks in my mind that would make sense to me. But burning down Burger King, looting Target, that's just taking advantage of the situation and using it for personal gain, in my opinion. Using it to raise absolute hell.
From what I saw, the first night in Minneapolis, there were 6 murders, black on black murders. If your big problem is African Americans dying, and then you go out to protest African Americans dying, but yet in the midst of that, you're all protesting, rioting, and then shooting each other, that kind of defeats the purpose.
Right. I mean, I agree with that.
I don't know what the end game for them here is. I really don't. I don't see an end game. And like
I understand their ethnicity. The African Americans are hurting in America. They feel like they're not getting a fair shake, especially with law enforcement. And we've seen more than a few times where the cop was probably not justified. I'm gonna be real with you. Especially this time, this was blatantly obvious. And I think they were mad because they weren't arrested immediately. But even in like a common murder case, it takes. You watch the first 48 hours. I watch it all the time. That's one of my favorite shows. These guys have to collect evidence. They have to, before you get a warrant to arrest somebody, you have to have evidence. So they wanted to make sure, before they go and arrest, especially a police officer, because even if you get arrested for murder, your career's gone. Before you ruin somebody's career, they wanted to make sure they had the right, especially the right charge, because it's almost impossible with the lack of knowledge we have of the situation through the video and through the eyewitness testimony to get a murder one. That's almost out the window. So they probably went down the ladder. And honestly, murder 3, it's almost like a manslaughter. So they were probably deciding what charges that they were going to charge him with, et cetera, et cetera. And I understand impatience because I'm one impatient person. I really am. I do not like to wait around. Once I get my mindset on something, I want it done now. I'm one of the most impatient people ever. But sometimes it pays to have patience. It really does.
And look, I completely understand, especially the patient point that you just put out. I mean, obviously these people were outraged. This community was outraged, and
Hell,
I mean, at this point, I was gonna say at this point, I think all of America who saw the video was outraged, and I'm gonna say it again. I do not understand that you had the eyes and the ears of the American people, and then all of a sudden just shit hits the fan because for no obvious reason. I mean, you had everyone's attention, but then
And
some people are going to look at this and be like, well, don't care no more because. And my thing is too, they're burning down African American businessmen's thing. I mean, I've seen multiple videos. I saw about a video about a 70-year-old black man, maybe mid 60s, just outside of his place of business, just sobbing because that's what he's worked for his entire life, and then now it's completely destroyed. And I mean, who knows if insurance is going to pay out because of that? There's that much damage in the city.
yeah, I agree. It's a sad situation all around. I mean, but another thing that jumps out at me is a lot of these protesters, especially in Minneapolis, that have been arrested are from out of state. It makes no sense to me to drive to Minneapolis and fuck up other people's shit. It just doesn't make sense to me. I feel like maybe Antifa, which we'll get into in a little while, is paying people to riot, and that's what you got to look out for. Organizations that like to stir shit up. We now have justice. The cop's been arrested. Maybe not complete justice that the Black Lives Matter community is looking for, because of course they want to see him convicted, and I think that's going to be an easy conviction with murder 3. I don't think there's a jury in the world that can't see that that's at least murder 3, which is very close to manslaughter. I mean, that's pretty obvious. He's going to do some hard time for sure. I can't see a way where he gets out of it. Because George Floyd once he was subdued and handcuffed, he really didn't find anymore. There's no need for you, and there's 4 fucking officers there. There's no need for you to put your knee on the back of his neck. I mean, they don't teach you that shit at Mandate. I don't know where he got that from, but he was out to hurt him, I feel like. Maybe not kill him, but he was definitely trying to hurt him because that shit would hurt.
I don't want anybody to sit here and say, oh, Josh was advocating for this crap. No, I'm not. I mean, when you're having a conversation with somebody, especially when you're having a conversation that's being recorded that is supposed to, I mean, we're just throwing around ideas here. So sometimes you have to play the devil's advocate to make it interesting, to make people want to listen to the conversation. So in no way, in shape, or form am I condoning this officer's actions at all. And I mean, I wanted to go ahead and put it out there.
No, we were actually both calling for justice in the last podcast. We both felt that something was definitely going to happen. He was going to get a charge.
Yeah, and my main point, and like I said, I don't even know if third degree is justification for this. I don't. I mean, I could easily see them going 2. Like I just
yeah. I mean, it's just harder to get a conviction.
But I mean,
I think he's easily going to be convicted of murder 3 for sure.
If we're going to talk about the case, we need to talk about it from all standpoints, because what's dangerous in these days is whenever you don't have the conversation from each end, that one day the one end that needs to be talked about is not going to be allowed to be talked about.
Right.
If you follow what I'm saying. So I think, like I said, I don't want anybody to sit here and be like, oh, well, Hutto's condoning this shit. No, I'm not. I'm not condoning it whatsoever. I'm just trying to have a conversation so that people bring up questions and people talk more about, hey, this is let's talk about this. Let's talk about this way. Let's talk about this situation in multiple different forms so that we can learn from it.
Right. All right. So we're going to get off of the George Floyd case for just a minute, and we are going to talk about some UFC real quick. Last night, UFC Fight Night. Well, it'll be Saturday night once you listen to this. Tyron Woodley, the number one contender in the welterweight division, was absolutely dominated by Burns. I think his name's Gilbert Burns. Yeah, Gilbert Burns. This dude looks like somebody that could really challenge Usman for that 170 title. But I want to focus more on Tyron Woodley because the welterweight division is going to be complicated here in the next couple of days. I think Tuesday is when Dana White and the owners of the UFC do the matchmaking. That'll be probably hell trying to decide who's going to get the shot at Usman, who's going to fight Masvidal, et cetera, et cetera. But Tyron Woodley, 38 years old, and he looks like worse every fight to me. I think he's at the end of his rope. He's taken multiple shots at the UFC, saying they don't promote him, shit like that. But he's just a boring fighter. How do you promote that? I mean, he's got that one punch knockout power, but other than that, he's not a very exciting fighter. He's explosive, yeah, but most of his fucking fights, like I agree with Dylan Dennis, are fucking snooze fest. It is what it is. I think he's at the end of his tenure. He may fight one more time in the UFC. Wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't ever fight again, to be honest.
Did you see that? I mean, I think I don't have it pulled up, all of his fights, but I'm looking at right now. Gilbert Burns has won his last two, including the Tyron fight. And the last fight that he won was in round one with a TKO. So,
right.
As I say, he might be. He's 18-3. So I mean, that's really. I mean, compared to some of these other guys, that's really not that many fights at the moment. So I mean, we could be looking at him on the come up. See what's.
Oh yeah, I think he's one fight away. I think he needs one more fight before he gets the Usman fight for the title.
One more good one.
It'll be interesting to see where they go with Usman. I don't think if Jorge Masvidal doesn't want to fight Usman, I think maybe you see the Colby rematch. He'll be coming off a medical suspension pretty soon. But if Masvidal wants to fight, I think he gets it, just because that fight's going to sell. Then maybe you could see Gilbert Burns fight Colby Covington for a number one contender match or something like that. I think that's how it's going to play out. It'll be those four, I believe. And then you got Leon Edwards, I think is his name. He's sitting at number 4. I'm not looking at the rankings. He's in the mix too. Depending on who wants to fight who, they'll figure all that out. But those four are at the top of the division, I feel like. And then you got Conor McGregor, who might want to fight at welterweight again. Not welterweight. Yeah, welterweight, actually, yeah. So who knows what the hell is going to happen in the UFC, but the summer is going to be a hot one, boys. There are some interesting matchups to be made, including Gaethje, Khabib. You've got TJ Dillashaw at the beginning of next year is going to be eligible, probably going back to bantamweight. It's going to be interesting. And then Triple C stepped down, so he's retiring apparently. Then you got McGregor's going to fight again. You got the John Jones shit going on. The UFC's a madhouse right now. So there's going to be there's interesting fights to be made for sure.
Did you see Dylan Dennis talking junk to John Jones on Twitter?
No, I didn't. Dylan Dennis talks shit to everybody, so that surprises me.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. And, I mean, dude, I get a kick out of Dylan Dennis' stuff. Like, all his Twitter is funny to me. But, dude, all right, here's my thing whenever you're starting to talk crap out of your weight class. You know it's not going to happen.
Right, and he's under contract with Bellator anyway. So,
well, and that's what I'm saying. They're never going to fight. Ever going to fight. Yeah. So why are you talking junk? Because, I mean, dude, if we meet up in the street, if they meet up in the streets, dude, John Jones going to be fresh off a daggone line and going to eat that dude for breakfast, if we're all being honest. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if I want to meet John Jones outside of a bar. He's about 12 beers in and just daggone did 2 lines of Colombian Bam Bam in the bathroom, comes out rapping and roaring, dude. And then sees Dylan Dennis is like, how tall is he? Like 5'9"? maybe.
Yeah, he's a little bit bigger than Conor McGregor, 5'9", 5'10".
Yeah, 5'9", 5'10", walking out of him trying to walk in the bar. John Jones walking out, thumps him over the head one good time. It's like, all right, let's go do some more cocaine. Let's party. Let's go shoot up a joint. Who knows what John Jones is going to do next? But I just think it's odd that you're going to sit there and talk junk when you know that it's never going to happen.
Right. He
Like,
just wants the
even
likes and shit like that.
you're not even fighting in the UFC, bro. And as much as I like to see that dude talk junk,
I love it.
I just
Absolutely love it.
what are you doing, man?
All right. Speaking of Dylan Dennis, we've known he's had some beef with Jake Paul before, which brings us to our next point in the podcast. Jake Paul, congratulations! You're my dumbass of the day, you fucking moron. Have you seen the video of Jake Paul in Scottsdale, Arizona yet? Have you?
No, I haven't seen it.
All right. So, as we know, with the COVID-19 going on in America, a lot of the malls and stuff are closed, including the one in Scottsdale, Arizona. But a video has emerged of Jake Paul inside a closed mall trespassing with looters and rioters due to the George Floyd case. We all know Jake Paul has been pretty much grew up a privileged life. He knows nothing what it's like to be what black people go through, what African Americans go through. In my opinion, this is a publicity stunt. He's trying to get clicks and views and trying to get, he's the number 4 trending topic on Google Trends right now. So I guess it worked. But he's releasing a statement saying he didn't loot, he didn't do that. You were out there with him. Why? Why are you doing this? Like, there's no other reason I can think of other than for content, for his YouTube channel, Snapchat, all that bullshit he's a part of. I really don't care for Jake Paul. I kind of like Logan Paul, but Jake Paul is becoming more and more of a fucking douchebag to me. What he does makes no sense. You're in this mall that's closed down, trespassing with people looting. What does that, people stealing shit out the stores. What does that make you look like? It makes you look like a fucking retard. Why are you out there?
Well, dude,
what do you think about this?
I used to hate both of them. I used to be like, these guys are both morons. Now, Logan Paul is actually, I listen to a lot of his podcasts now, and he seems like he's, definitely legit businessman. And then on top of that, a fairly good boxer. Obviously, he's not going to be boxing in any kind of league now, but it's interesting to see those guys, especially celebs, get out there and actually put in the time, put in the work, get in legit training camps and do stuff like that. I'm still not a big fan of Jake Paul. And especially, I'm looking at it as soon as you mentioned that, I looked it up, and I'm looking at the pictures on here. There's pictures saying that's definitely him.
Oh, 100%. He didn't even deny it. So,
it's definitely him.
Yeah.
And my thing is, like, his upraising aside, you've got millions of dollars, bro. Millions of dollars. And you're doing this garbage because that's not, if you really felt convicted about the Black Lives Matter movement, or even just like the George Floyd case in general, go out and go to your local, wherever the local police department is, or fly your millionaire butt out there to Minneapolis and go protest. Well, you can't protest in front of a burnt down building. Nobody's going to care anymore. But do something. Donate some of the money you got to the cause or something like this. But all this was clickbait. That's all it was. Is that he probably was going to unleash this video and I went out there and did this, that, and the other, and we're in this abandoned. Just have more common sense, because there are kids out there that look up to this douche. And they look to these people as people who should set an example, or stuff that's cool that they want to go do. Number one, it's extremely dangerous doing stuff like that. You never know what's going to happen. The cops could roll up, shoot you in the nugget with a tear gas can, and it's OV. Knocked out, hit the ground, bust your nugget, it's over with. So, number one, I think he was setting a bad example. And then number two, he's just acting as stupid as he always does.
I totally agree. I think if Jake Paul was actually infatuated with the Black Lives Matters movement or this case in general, he already has one of the biggest audiences in the world. He's got over 10 million followers on YouTube. People worship this guy. He could do something as constructive as making a YouTube video, bringing light to the case, enlightening people on it, enlightening people on what the Black Lives Matter movement does. I mean, that would be sufficient to me. You got 15 million people that are going to see it. Now people are seeing you going to a mall that's closed. You're surrounding yourself with looters, people breaking the law. And it's just, I feel like that's him encouraging that kind of, it's not a good look. It's him encouraging that type of activity. If he wasn't encouraging it, why would he be in there with them? It's a dumb move by him, I feel like. And I'm sure his PR team is fucking not getting any sleep right now.
And like I said, I've said this before. If you did care about black young men getting shot or being oppressed and so on, and you're a multimillionaire, how about we start giving money to these single black moms who have to work the 2 and 3 jobs so they don't have to work? I mean, you got millions of dollars. Some of these dudes go out and spend $100,000 on just one dinner at a party, and they go and they pay for everybody's drinks and they pay for everybody's food at all these lavishing restaurants, and then leave there and put up a tweet and a hashtag about their support, and then don't do anything else. I mean, a hashtag and a tweet does nothing.
Right. I agree.
And so if you hit up these, there's probably tons of places that you can donate to that does help out these single black moms. It does help out these kids that are less fortunate, that can help those moms not have to work these 2 and 3 jobs, to help them where they can be at home and be with their kids. And when they're at home and with their kids, they're less likely to be out on the streets. They're more likely to get better parenting because the mom's around to supervise them, to teach them right from wrong. I mean, idle hands is the devil's playground, as you've heard before. I mean,
absolutely.
Every time I've ever done anything that got in trouble, it's just because I ain't had nothing else to do. So
right.
There's ways to go about this, especially if you're just some multi-millionaire throwing cash everywhere and just wasting money. And then going to come out, oh, yeah, I support the cause. Let me put a hashtag up on Twitter just to show everybody. It makes no sense to me.
Exactly. And it bothers me. But we all know why he won't donate money to the Black Lives Matter movement, to single black mothers, to help these less fortunate kids, is because there's no content in it. There's no gain for him. And that's what Jake Paul is all about, is how can I get more likes? How can I get more followers? How can I get more famous? How can I get more money? And that's just a shitty way to be. It is what it is. A lot of those celebrities are like that. But there are some good ones for sure, but there are a lot of them are like that.
If that's what you want to do, if that's what you set your life for, if you're like, I want to make content, nobody's demanding that you come out and take a stand for anything. But don't try to boost your content by piggybacking off of something that is a legit problem. Or don't try to go and just get clicks because you say, oh, I'm out here doing this. If you're going to do something, don't just half-ass it and put a tweet up. Don't just half-ass it and put up a YouTube video. Actually do something. And my problem with big celebrities too is they all come out and they'll donate $10,000 to some cause that they believe in. And the first thing they do is take a picture of them handing the check over, or take a picture of them or a video of them talking about them. Why do you have to announce that you're doing this anyway?
Yeah, agreed. All right, I'm getting kind of agitated talking about this motherfucker, exactly, so let's move on. Let's move on. COVID-19, we've seen the cases start to decline. I think we're on the backside of this thing now. It'll be interesting to see in the next couple of weeks if these protests and all these people gathering at the beaches on Memorial Day. Was it Memorial Day? What
Yeah,
Memorial Day
it
the
was
other? Yeah,
Memorial
I
Day.
could.
Yeah,
I thought it was. Okay, so Memorial Day. My days get all fucked up, so forgive me for that. Memorial Day weekend. A lot of people went to the lakes and stuff. We'll see if there's any rise in it, and if there's not, then I think we've been lied to. I really
Oh,
do.
I already do. Screw that. There's been any. I mean, they might sit there and tell you because I've seen a lot of stuff on social media talking about if we don't see that a rise in COVID-19 this weekend, then we've all been lied to. I mean that, and obviously they're if it's on social media, somebody of importance is going to see it, and whether that be the World Health Organization or that be the CDC, somebody's going to see it. At this point, I don't even know if I can believe numbers coming out this weekend because, like everybody's kind of catching on and saying, "Hey, this wasn't what they said it was," and I understand they're going to say, "Hey." And it's like this with any kind of natural disaster or when a hurricane comes. Hey, this could be a category number 4. It could hit at this place, or this place, and it could be very disastrous. I understand why you do it because you want people to be over prepared. It's never a bad thing to be over prepared. But at this point, I think that we were just flat out lied to about all of it.
I would have to agree. And normally I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but it's kind of becoming blatantly obvious that they oversold COVID. It's not nearly as deadly as we were led to believe. What is it? It's less than 1% are dying from it.
It's less than 1%, and the
Yeah, which is
average death rate
crazy.
is around 82 years old.
Which is older than the average life expectancy in America anyway, right? I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure it is.
yeah, it is.
Okay, so I think Joe Rogan said that on his podcast, and he makes a lot of good points about it. I just feel like we've been lied to, and that's the main reason I brought this up. We're seeing decline. I hope everybody's still taking proper precautions, of course. I hope the elderly are staying indoors, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we're on the backside of this. I think we're starting to see light at the end of the tunnel, as to say. So
Now, do you think if
thank God.
okay, if we see, well, you mentioned the light at the end of the tunnel, if we see this light and come out of the cave at the end of the month of June, next time that we actually do have a serious pandemic or something serious that we all really do need to take into consideration that could kill millions of Americans or I mean millions of people worldwide. Do you think that people are going to take it as seriously or not? Because it's kind of to me right now, this is kind of the boy who called wolf scenario that they sit there and say, "Oh, this is it's coming. It's coming to get you." And then you're just sitting out there in the field and you're looking and you don't ever see the wolf because it was never there.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the natural reaction for any human being is if we're told something's going to be really bad and it's not, for us to get complacent. I think this especially helped me getting back in the gym, trying to live a healthier lifestyle so I don't have to I just need to do it anyway, but to worry about these pandemics as much, most of these things affect less healthy people more than healthy people. So if nothing else, just giving people a chance to think outside the box, eat healthier, exercise, go out in the sun, get your vitamin D, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I would agree with that. The boy who cried wolf is a perfect simile, I would say, or metaphor rather,
Well,
to insinuate what we've been dealing with here. It's just anytime you get something and you think it's going to be bad and it's not as bad as you thought, we tend to become lackadaisical with future warnings. I think that's the natural reaction.
Well, what's going to be more interesting is that, especially these, because I mean, I keep up with, I love comedy. Comedy is one of my favorite things to listen to. I love watching people's Netflix specials. I love watching comedians, listening to comedians' podcasts and things like that. And from what I'm hearing from most of them, is that they're enjoying this downtime where, they're not out on the road. They've been time hanging out with their family. And I think that's the case with a lot of people is that they've just been enjoying this time where everything is just chilled out. Everything's calm. There wasn't that much traffic. They've been staying at home, eating at home, been out in their yards, just enjoying life, not not caught up in the hustle and bustle that is the everyday average American day. So, do you think that this is going to affect the way that people live their lives and how they manage their schedule? Or do you think that a lot of people are going to be like, okay, I kind of like that? I mean, that may, I mean, that was really nice. That was nice to cool down for a little bit. Do you think it's going to be something where people take that to perspective, or that after about 2 or 3 months, when all of these regulations and things like that are done, do you think they're just going to go back to their regular, ordinary American lifestyle?
To be honest, I would love to see people spend more time with their family, slow down a little bit. But if you want my honest opinion, I think in the next 2 or 3 months, it's all going to be back to normal. People are going to be worried more about their jobs than their family, worried about what shouldn't be more important, and it's just going to go back to normal, in my opinion. But as for me, I'm taking a step back and looking at things a little differently, to be honest, especially with the health and the family aspect. You can never take those things for granted, and it's always nice to spend time with family and put the things that should be first. And I think this was a nice little wake up call to some of America. But unfortunately, like I previously said, I believe it's going to be back to normal pretty soon. People are going to be back to their everyday lives. Moving on from COVID, we're going to talk a little bit about the home state. So we've seen what happened in Atlanta. We've seen the mayhem in Atlanta, the burning cop cars and doing all kinds of crazy, wild shit. But I want to take the time to focus on a city that has done things, in my opinion, the way they should be. Savannah, Georgia. Today they did, I think it was either today or yesterday, they started doing their little protests, the marches and stuff like that. And I actually have some Facebook friends that took part in this. And I feel like this was an incredibly handled situation. From what I'm understood, there's been no arrests, nobody harmed. Just a phenomenal a phenomenal way to get your point across. But for some reason, I think the mayor freaked out or something, and all the state patrol that was stationed in Atlanta before the curfew and all that stuff, and the fucking National Guard has been called in. I'm not understanding. This is how shit gets out of control right here.
And
You get the National Guard and shit in there, and shit seems to go haywire.
I have a mutual friend that is actually in the National Guard, and he got the call this afternoon, and then when he gets on I-16, they call him and tell him to turn around, that they're not going to need that many people. I mean, I don't think it's an overreaction because of what you saw in Minneapolis, what you saw in Atlanta. So I think it was definitely a necessary precaution just in case stuff did get out of control. Because, like I said, in Minneapolis, there were 6 more murders that night because of rioting and stuff like that. So I don't think it was something that I think it was just because he was not taking the situation lightly and did not know what was going to happen. I mean, nobody knew. If you would have asked me, hey, do you think these protests in Savannah are going to get out of hand? And I had to bet on whether it was going to. I mean, from the past couple states that I think they said there had been 31 cities that had looting and vandalism going on and rioting going on. So I don't think it was a call that he made lightly. I think it was a smart call that he did take precaution like that. So I don't think it was anything where he was just trying to bring his or show off his power as mayor. I don't see it being something like that. I think he was just being precautious and trying to have the situation under control before it got out of control.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's just a hairy situation as to what to do. I'm glad I'm not the mayor of Savannah, because you see a lot of times these officers that are not from that area are not familiar with the culture and stuff of that area. They come down there, and that's a lot of times when shit hits the fan.
Well, and I think a lot. I mean, I think, not to cut you off, but I think a lot of these guys, after what happened with George Floyd, they were definitely told, "Hey, look, keep the peace. Don't use excessive force because this is going to make it worse." So I definitely think that everybody who was sent down to handle this situation had been thoroughly told, "Look, We're down here to do a job. We're down here to do it right.
Right. Right. Like I said, it's a tough call. I definitely understand why he would tend to think things could get hairy down there because that's what we've seen all over the national media. And unfortunately, we're not seeing what the media is going to bring, like we've said before, is what's going to get them clicks and reads on their articles and views on their videos. And that's people raising a mortal hill. They're not going to show these guys that are going about it the right way. I mean, it's a sad situation. There's a lot of people that are protesting peacefully and doing things the absolute right way, standing up for what they believe in, and that's what Americans should do. But you're not going to see that on the media because who the fuck wants to read a boring article about people protesting peacefully? They want to see action, shit like that. So
And I mean,
it is what it is.
the peaceful protest, I mean, whatever your cause is, the peaceful protest is a beautiful thing to see because it's backed up. You have that right. It is a God given right by the Constitution of the United States of America to do that. So it's something that when you see people come together and they are driven by their beliefs and something that they think they're going to show, hey, we think this is wrong, we're standing up for our beliefs. It's something amazing to see just a group of people, especially in how ununited. That's not really the good word, but I mean, you know what I'm saying. America has not been united in years, and so anything for Americans to become united around is a great thing to see. You love to see people go. I'd love to see everybody in the United States just gather up and just be united in our country, be united in being American citizens and taking on all these issues that we do have because America does have her issues. And
Oh, for sure.
take,
Every country does.
taking these issues one at a time and saying, hey, we don't think this is right, or hey, this used to be the normal. Let's change that because now, as civilized people, maybe what they did 100 years ago wasn't the right thing. And I mean, there was a lot of stuff that what they did 100 years ago was not the right thing. We all know that. But I saw that they were comparing. There was people on social media comparing to. I mean, we talked about this on the podcast whenever the 2A protesters rallied in Virginia, and they were like, "Well, they didn't get. There was no arrest because these people they didn't get tear gassed by the police, and because they were white." That was something where when you watch footage, there was whites, blacks, Asians, Mexicans, everybody was out there under one goal, and that was to show the American government that hey, you're not taking our rights. And the best thing about that is because there was some 30,000 AR-15s and shotguns and sniper. I mean, you saw videos of people walking around with 50 cows. Not one thing was vandalized. Not one cop was harassed. Not one law was broken. There was no arrests. So I definitely want to see more. If people think, hey, this isn't right, I want to see stuff like that happen. Stuff like, hey, we believe that people are being persecuted by police officers, and we want to see better training. We want to see more diversity in our police departments, and so they take to the streets and peacefully do things. That's what America is all about. Being able to tell your government, hey, we don't like this and we want you to do something about it.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so tell me, what do you know about Antifa? I have a brief definition I'll read real quick. It's a political protest movement comprising autonomous groups affiliated by their militant opposition to fascism and other forms of extreme right wing ideology. Just that's just a brief definition. Tell me what you know about Antifa, Hutto.
Well, I mean, number one, we look at their past and see that everywhere they go, they cause chaos. And to me, anybody who's going to cause chaos and going to wreak havoc on cities, especially behind a mask where you can identify who these people are, and I mean that to me they're just cowards because you go out and you start these fires, you start these fights, and then whenever you're shot in the nuts with a beanbag gun, you go cry home to mommy. These people are not our friends. I mean, there's a way to go about things, and that ain't it. It's
I
not.
would agree. And the thing
Going and
about
murdering
Antifa is
dogs.
they go and start all this shit in the community, and then once the shit hits the fan, everything's burned down. They go back to their fucking homes in a different community and
Yeah,
go right back to the fucking lives they were living, while the people they've incited to do these riots and possibly paid to do these riots have to wake up in the morning and realize, oh fuck, our whole community's burnt down. We've destroyed everything. Now we're left to pick up the pieces by ourselves. Antifa's not going to be there. I can
and
guarantee fucking tell you that.
I heard there was reports that there were masked Antifa members bringing in vehicle loads of bricks and just dropping them off.
They were, yes, just to fuck. I
And
mean, why?
people
What the fuck?
people might not believe me, but I think George Soros, if you don't know who he is, go look him up. He's a total douchebag, twinkle douche, everything. I hate that guy. But people are going to say, "Oh, there's no way one man can fund all that." No, there is. What he gets that crap together. And I mean, you could tell me I'm wrong all you want to. I'm just I'm just going to blow you off. But I really do think he's behind a lot of this stuff. He wants to see civil unrest.
Yeah,
That is
some
his
people live
goal.
off this shit.
That is his goal, is to see civil unrest among the American people. Because one thing that the deep state does not want is they don't want to see the American people united. They don't want to.
Exactly, because that's when we're the most powerful for sure.
Yeah, they don't. They
And
do not want to
it's
see us getting along. They want to see us fighting constantly.
right, and that's fucked up. Like I said, Antifa's not. If you confide in Antifa, they're not going to be there at the end to help you pick up the pieces of what you've done. They're not going to help you fight your charges. None of that shit. So my best advice was not to be listening to motherfuckers from outside of your community come in there and tell you to burn shit
I
down
think
and cause absolute havoc.
the president has actually, as of today, labeled Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization.
And it makes sense to me. Along with groups like the KKK and shit like that, back in the day, they did the same kind of shit.
Yeah,
They wanted to see us break apart and wanted to see us not be united because we're not. They just like that kind of shit. They didn't want to see, for instance, the KKK didn't want to see black people get equal rights, and they wanted to terrorize them. They're a bunch of pieces of shit. Antifa is much in the same. They want to see people locked up. They want to see buildings burnt to the ground. But mostly because they're fucking sociopaths, in my opinion. They're fucking crazy.
Antifa is short for anti-fascist. But when you
Yeah,
look at the things that they claim to believe in and the anarchy that they bring is the exact definition of fascism. Like a lot of these guys that are caught and jailed during these Antifa protests are Marxists. Like they start looking at these guys, they unveil their name, people go to their Facebook profiles, look them up. They're communist Marxists. So don't sit here and come at me and tell me you're an anti-fascist whenever you believe in what is fascism.
right, exactly. So, anyway, let's move on because we're almost at an hour here and we still got a couple more subjects to talk about. Martial law, just a quick opinion. Do you think these riots and the absolute chaos that's going on in a bunch of our major cities in the United States, is that going to be cause for martial law? Or what's your opinion on that?
I hope not, dude. And in any situation, I do not agree with these riots whatsoever. But in any, it takes a very, very special situation for me to be able to sit there and say, okay, yes, I can justify martial law. We've talked about how scary martial law is and how concerning it could be for the United States citizens. So, like I said, if you want to hear us talk about martial law, we've had podcasts in the past where we've talked about it. Go look back if you haven't seen it. It's good content. But
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to come to that point. I think in the next couple of days, we'll see the riots start to die down. Especially after there is some sort of justice coming about. I think maybe the protesters are going to be not 100% satisfied, but semi-satisfied with the fact that he's locked up now.
I hope that at that point, that they do look at this and say, okay, he's locked up. And I can understand where they're coming from. Well, okay, this one guy is locked up, but there's so many. I would really like to see police forces throughout the nation come back and do training. And I think that could satisfy a lot of people if we came back and said, okay, all of our police, every one of our patrol officers and detectives are going to go through courses that do show them, hey, this is the proper way to subdue someone. This is when you need to take force. This is when you need to lay off. So I think that would be a good step towards making this right, is going through courses that do they teach people proper procedure on how to subdue a suspect and to
Right.
do it without having somebody harmed and having somebody killed. So I think that would be a good step in a good direction. And because we always, when we see things like this, we always forget those cops that they do have to ride these inner city beats. But you forget the ones that you see the video on Facebook where the cop takes the time out of his day to go pick up snacks for the kids at the basketball park, and they go and play basketball with these kids, or go out there and spend time with these kids to get a relationship there. To reinforce, hey, we know we don't have the best relationship and best reputation in this community, but we want to show you that we're different, that we actually do care about you. It takes away things like this, takes away from the guys who actually do the job and put more effort into the job that most other guys do.
Yeah, agreed. Um, as I previously said, some people aren't meant to be police officers, and people like this guy that took the life of George Floyd is definitely one. I think I read somewhere where he's killed 6 people. I don't know how true that is because I didn't fact check it. So, but some people just aren't meant to wear the badge, and serve and protect our community is not their main goal, and it should be. So, anyway, moving on. Let's talk about Anonymous. They released a video threatening the Minneapolis Police Department to expose them for their prior corruption cases. And this, according to Anonymous and according to other articles I've read, Minneapolis has a long history of being of corruption in general. I'd like to see all these bring to light, and I think a lot of them, like we talked about before the podcast, are being reinvestigated, and rightfully should be. Maybe there were some innocent people locked up and charged with stuff they didn't deserve. Hopefully those guys are freed, because nobody deserves to sit in jail for a crime they didn't commit. So basically, for a short time, I think it was sometime Saturday or maybe earlier today, the Minneapolis Police Department's website went down, and a lot of people were pointing the finger at Anonymous, especially after they released that very cryptic video.
Well,
So Anonymous is very powerful, and they do hack a lot of shit. So it wouldn't surprise me at all.
I'd like for us to do a podcast because like we said, we're coming up on an hour. We could do 2 hours worth of stuff talking about these anonymous videos and things that they've uncovered in the past, and who the actual organization is, and dive into some stuff like that. That would be extremely fun to do some research on.
Yeah, we can do that for the next podcast. All right, so the last 2 things we're going to talk. Well, there's actually one more. We might do YouTube versus Spotify on the next podcast, because I do want to talk about that, and that's
something that we can dive deep into.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that down right now so I don't forget it. All right, so the last 2 things we're going to talk about are some celebrities that have either taken into action or voiced their opinion on these protests that are going on. First, we're going to talk about J.R. Smith. About 10 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that, before we came on to do the podcast, I was doing just a quick scroll through Twitter, and I seen a video of J.R. Smith beating the absolute shit out of somebody. J.R. Smith is a professional basketball player, played with LeBron. I think 2-time NBA champion, maybe. At least one, I know for sure. So J.R. Smith comes out of his house in L.A. and sees somebody vandalizing his car, apparently, allegedly, of course, innocent until proven guilty in America, and proceeds to whip this motherfucker's ass. I mean, absolutely whipped his ass up and down the street. And I can't say I blame him, because J.R. Smith put in a lot of hours in the gym, and it took him a long time to get where he's at, and he worked for what he's got. Don't fuck with somebody else's shit. It just is what it is. That's plain and simple. If you come fucking with somebody's shit, you can expect retaliation. Some people might not retaliate, but there's a bunch of people that are going to try to beat your ass or shoot you and kill you. So I'm going to leave it at that. J.R. Smith absolutely whooped this guy's ass. I shared it on Facebook. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's fucking hilarious.
And the bad thing is about this is we've been seeing a lot of the protests too, that they'll be going across the road and people that are trying to go on their day, they start bashing in these innocent people's cars and bashing their windows in, hitting their windows with metal rods and things like that. I got news for you. There's going to be certain places where you go to do that and that window's going to roll down, and what comes out of it, you ain't going to be happy.
Yeah, for sure.
You're not going to be happy what comes out the other side of that window. So it's definitely not a smart move whatsoever.
Right. I can tell you this. If you come to my fucking house and start hitting my truck, there will be gunshots. And I promise you that. And like I said, like we've been saying the whole time, it makes some types of protests make sense. Coming and fucking with my shit, which I had nothing to do with the George Floyd case at all, makes no sense. And I will handle it accordingly.
Dude, I don't care if I'm at my house or rolling down Industrial Boulevard. Don't start beating on my truck, dude. Because, I mean, like you said, J.R. Smith worked hard to get what he's got.
Exactly.
I mean, I might not have much, but it's an honest living. So
exactly. Same with me. I worked hard for my shit. Don't fucking touch my shit unless I give you permission to. If I say beat the shit out of my car, proceed to beat the shit out of my car. If you ask me, I'm going to say no. And if you touch my car, I'm going to get out and try to whoop your ass or kill you, one of the two. Because I worked hard for that shit. And I spend long days in fucking hot environments dealing with dipshits all day. So, yeah, I'm gonna have to protect my shit, homie. Because I ain't trying to rebuy a truck, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, because, I mean, at some point, I saw some social media posts. It was like, if you value your possessions over somebody's life, then you're part of the problem. No, part of the problem is that you don't value your life as much as you do destroying my possessions. Because at that point, there's not going to be any questions asked when you come at me or you come at my vehicle or you come at one of my family members. There's no questions asked at that point. It's over with. And
right, and I
beat the hell out of me, but you're going to know I was there.
And I can see where people would say, don't value possessions over people's lives. I understand. I mean, I get where they're coming from. But that still doesn't give you the right to come fuck with my shit, because I'm gonna retaliate, buddy. I'm just letting you know ahead of time.
The conscious decision to screw with my stuff. Or you made a conscious decision to screw with somebody else's stuff that is not. If you want to go, dude, if you want to set your car on fire in your front yard and burn your house down, by all means, raise natural born hell. I don't care. Do it, dude. And shoot, Facebook Live it and I'll watch it.
Hell yeah, me too, probably.
I'll give you the views, bro. But I, for one, I like my vehicle. I don't want to see my windows bashed in. I don't want scratches, because I've already put enough scratches in my vehicle. So I mean, I don't want to see other ones that I'm not responsible for. I already have one ding that I'm not responsible for, that somebody just hit it and drove off. So I don't want to see it done again.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to have insurance go up either. That's another problem. We're not even going to talk about that though. So I mean, basically that's it. I forgot we already talked about plies. So that's going to do it for this podcast. This one was a banger, but the next one's definitely going to be a banger as well. We'll dive into some more anonymous shit and the YouTube versus Spotify. That it's going to come to a head pretty soon, I believe, like you said.
Yeah. All right, boys and girls.
Yep. Thank y'all for tuning in again, of course. Like, subscribe on all platforms. Tell a friend. If you want to come on here, I'm telling you, we're willing to have a guest. We don't give a shit. Come on here, chop it up with us. It don't matter what walk of life you're from, black, white, purple, brown, beige. We don't really give a fuck.
Bring on the
gay, Christian, Antichrist. We don't care.
Aliens, bro.
Fuck, dude. If I get an alien on here, it's a wrap. Yeah, we're going viral. We're going viral if we get an alien on this joint. But anyway, like I said, thank you guys. We love y'all. Make sure y'all have a good week. Spend some more time with your family, all that good stuff. Anyway, peace.
Week. Peace.
Thanks for tuning into the B-Max Sports Podcast.
40, 1, Lindsay, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, Lindsay, stop.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Listen, my whole family loves it, man.
I never miss an episode. It's the best.
We'll see you next week.
Go rock this thing, huh? Love you, man. Let's go get it.